John. Hey, Gabrielle.
Oh my God. Let me just get where I'm supposed to be. Okay.
Looks like you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Well, okay. I see me instead of you.
Oh, I see you.
Looking good around here, but let me just say.
I see you. Well,
Let's go along here.
just drink yourself in, girl. Scorpio sister. I have to
Tell you, the haircut, the COVID.
We're born on the same day in November. And I think McNally Jackson's practice of pairing speakers astrologically is working really well.
We have some dark cynicism to share.
We have dark cynicism and other things to share. But yeah, same year, same day, not the same year. I'm immensely older than you are, but yeah. November 6th, well, never mind. But Scorpio sister, it is such a thrill to be doing this. Prune, which I'm sure we all know, well, for 20 years, it has been the favorite restaurant of almost everyone I know. It's the restaurant you move to New York for. It is the intimate, hospitable, sexy, fun, fabulously delicious restaurant that when I got to New York almost 20 years ago, somebody took me there and I thought, yeah, of course. Somebody built this vast, difficult, cacophonous city so that Gabrielle Harrison could start this restaurant. 20 years later, Gabrielle, you wrote a piece for the New York Times magazine section on around April 26th called Closing the Restaurant That Was My Life for 20 years, which has been read by almost everyone I know and seems to stand as, I don't know, some sort of, instant classic isn't quite what the phrase I want, but it just so perfectly, generously and mournfully and deeply speaks to what has happened to someone who started with love and endless labor this fantastic business. There are millions of stories like this, but you wrote the story, and I would love to hear from you. Maybe let's talk a little bit about the restaurant, if you would. Gabrielle's fantastic memoir about well, her whole life, including the restaurant, called Blood, Bones, and Butter, as John mentioned, published in 2011, is a remarkable book. Everyone has to immediately order a copy. If you already have a copy, just get another one from McNally Jackson. And Gabrielle, would you start off by just telling us a little bit about the genesis of the restaurant and the kind of part of what I loved about the book was the way you talked about your sense of hospitality, of what a restaurant can be, and of the intricate relationship between the server and those being served.
I know, it's so funny thinking about how we're going to speak to each other tonight about the birth and death of a thing at the very same time, and where to start. Do we follow a sort of chronological path with this place that I started, and then that just recently, is on life support, and may or may not come back. You want to know what it was like to open the restaurant? Is that the...
Yeah.
I mean, it's so, to describe opening the restaurant is, I think, also requires describing the city at the time. And it's such a deep return to a time that doesn't exist anymore, that I don't want to sound like, you know, gather around because grandma remembers when they didn't have cell phones and back when we used to have to walk uphill to school both ways, that kind of, but it does, you do have to set the scene a little bit just to say that I was a freelancer in New York City. I was in my rent stabilized apartment, which I'm still in and have raised children through, etc. And this little place became available on my block. And I went in. It had been a French bistro that had, I think, gone bankrupt and been padlocked by the city. And on the day that I saw it, it was a hot summer day or maybe a spring day. It was quite hot and it was putrid, absolutely putrid, just cockroaches running rampant everywhere. Espresso pods stuck in the espresso machine still. It looked like the city had padlocked the restaurant at midnight and they had done business right up until then. There were lamb shanks decomposing in coolers that still had free air running, but no refrigeration, and your feet stuck to the ground from rat excreta. And yeah, I had to have a t-shirt up over my face to not gas out. And that's, in spite of all that, I could see that it had immense charm. And it was very small. It was in an unlikely space. It was not an actual restaurant, it seemed to me. And it was just right for someone like me who had absolutely no experience in running a restaurant kitchen. I'd been working in catering, which is a very different beast, and had had a lot of experience there, done some food styling, recipe testing, but had never been the chef of a restaurant, let alone the owner of a business. And I saw its charm. It was small enough. I thought, this is going to be like the equivalent of a college education or a graduate school education, and I'll just go in and try something. And I just opened this restaurant that was meant to be for me. And I have done that enduringly my whole time. I just count myself as the canary or the normal person and say, what do I want? And then I make the thing that I would like to have, knowing that I'm part of a large universe of like-minded or people with mutual desires. And so that's what I did. I opened the restaurant that I wanted, that I wished existed.
Yeah. Well, that's it. We're trying to write the books we want to read. Yeah. Open the restaurant. Is that true? Which existed. Yeah. There's great stuff in Blood, Bones, and Butter about hospitality, about this fantastic story in the book about a little tiny Greek restaurant in a tiny remote corner of a remote island run by a woman who just sort of made what she made.
Yeah.
And when it was gone. And I would love to hear you talk a little more about that and other, and sort of relatedly, I think of it, I'll put this clearly, I think of it as a kind of benign, being a sort of a benign social top, like you're really saying, with all generosity and love, I bet you want this.
Yeah.
Not just like, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? How can I interpret what you want and give it to you? It's more like, come here. Could you talk about that a little bit?
I think because I had no legitimate credentials for opening a restaurant whatsoever. I had never read a commercial lease. I didn't understand what a certificate of occupancy was. It would not have been, I didn't know to look for a separate water meter, or that garbage and recycling are collected by the cubic yard and you have a private company that does that. I mean, all of the mechanics of running a restaurant, I had no credentials for, nor even running a restaurant line. I could cater your wedding in the middle of a clover field for 200 under a tent tomorrow, but I really didn't know restaurant in that way. And so I had to take stock of what I did have, and I had a very driven work ethic and a hyper attention to cleanliness. And I had a vast experience of being taken care of and fed and shown hospitality when I most needed it. I had been a 19-year-old, 20-year-old backpacker around the world for a couple of years, 18, 20 months, and had found myself in many, many pickles. You arrive in a city that's on strike and the American Express office is not open and you can't cash a traveler's check for 2 weeks, and there's no such thing as a cell phone, and I didn't have a credit card, et cetera. And, you know, that someone sort of hands you a sandwich, or you arrive at a friend of a friend of a friend's home and he just feeds you without asking, are you vegetarian, or let me check your preferences. He just produced the meal. Here is the buttered bread. Here's the milk with apple in the blender and some honey, and I've fried some eggs. And it's just, it's an astonishment. All the blood starts to flow again in your otherwise tight, hardened, fearful, terrorized body. And Margarita, who you're referring to, the restaurant, who really does stand as a model for me of all time, she grew everything up in the hillside. She rode side saddle on her donkey. She made her own wine, grew her own vegetables. Her son went out in their one boat and caught the fish, and you went and sat under the trees. The cicadas, do you say cicadas, just dropped out of the tree branches onto your tabletop. You waited interminable hours for her to come and deliver. You had a language barrier, or I did in the beginning. And so back into the kitchen she brought you and just lifted the pots, and when it ran out, and she would take the pencil and write your bill on the paper, and you would pay the and then she would crumple up the paper and throw it away. And I longed for that so much in my own restaurant. I had that experience, or those kinds of experiences, and I wanted to bring them into the restaurant since I had no other credentials. This requires something that New York doesn't often have, which is a bedraggled traveler. And when you're lucky enough to have the bedraggled traveler, or the person who just wants desperately what you have but can't demand it, can only sort of politely look or ask. I mean, this is the perfect marriage of, we have something here to offer. It's rather imperfect. I love that you think Prune is a great restaurant, but I think it's a freaking hot mess all the time. It's too small. We're too slow. Half of us are hungover half the time. It's just like, it's a fucking wreck in there. And yet it's also a very beautiful wreck, and we produce pretty delicious things. I admit, or I agree, but it really works best when the person who arrives to imperfect Prune is themselves somehow imperfect, and we meet each other and we commune.
Yeah. You know, it's true. It's a connection. There's nothing obsequious in it.
No.
To me. Again, it's not like, oh, customer, what do you want? Or reader, what do you want? How can I give that to you? It's a more complex, I would even say profound act of generosity than that. I love this. I want to share it with you.
that's the overarching drive of the restaurant. Here's the thing that I loved, and I would like to the best of my ability, bring it to you. It's very hard to bring with the Negroni cocktail, for example, all the attendant things that should go with it, that you should be sitting in a square where there's a enormous public life transpiring, and you're looking up at the sort of salmon colored walls of the building surrounding you, and it's a shorty, and I can't translate and bring all of that, but I'm going to do my best to get everything I can into the glass and just present to you this experience. So these are the pistachios that were, you know, tossed in salt with rake and set on fire in a Turkish discotheque that I went to in 1986. And this is the Negroni that I first had. And this is the pork chop that my Italian mother-in-law made, and this is the Turkish manti that I had at a wedding in Turkey. I'm just trying to give you something that I thought was extraordinary. And I think the question of hospitality, and I like what you're bringing to it, the sort of topness, which brings a slight, you know, sexual tone to it, which is like, it's true, man, I'm going to tell you what you want. You don't even know what you want. But it's my pleasure to tell you and to get it for you.
always sexy. Yeah, there's well, I used to go at least once a month with a writer friend, and we would always get different things. We always each got the marrow bones, and then we would sometimes get a third order to share, and we kind of felt like we could almost throw them over our shoulders. You're like, poof, we didn't, ow, you know, how lose that eye? But I guess I offer that as some attempt to give a sense of how blessed and guiltless and it all felt like. You can just, here is this gorgeous thing that you can have, and there was a depth, and I guess I'll say cleanliness about the experience of having dinner there. Does that make sense?
That the transaction is very clean?
Yeah. I don't mean, you know, the restaurant itself, of course, clean, but I mean a kind of some kind of immaculacy of the exchange. Wahoo! Let's get another marrow bones. Yeah.
It's funny. I wonder if that's there's some transaction that happens between mutually. I don't know. Do you have to be a little bit bent, a little bit broken, a little bit have had some humiliation in your lifetime? Have you had to have been down on your knees at some point? And I don't mean that in that way. I mean it like in supplication or in defeat. And whatever. I've joked for many years, and I won't stop, that Prune is not actually a restaurant. It's an ASPCA. And you're welcome here. Whatever your problem is, you can come on in.
Yeah.
As long as you have one. And in fact, I think that's where if we're going to cut to the end of Prune, where, you know, I don't know if it's the end of Prune, but let's just say for now, it starts to get confusing at the end, where, as I wrote in the essay, that the demographic of my city changed and my neighborhood. And I noticed a lot of very, very not broken people, if that's what you want to call them, very supremely intact and proud of it, glad about it. And that's, you know, it gets very confusing then what we're doing, what the transaction is. And look, I will forever model what I want. I will forever lead with what I want to receive, and you hope it rubs off.
Well, before we go to the end, which is not really the end for now, let's pause in the middle. So, sure, open a restaurant. It's fabulously satisfying, and you're making people happy, and you're also about to give birth doing brunch, because a lot of it is. I mean, I've worked in restaurants. I never owned a restaurant, but even just working in a restaurant, I have a sense of, whoa, it is hard.
Yeah.
It is at its best, it's miraculous, but whoa, you know, really about to give birth, and nobody's there to make brunch. Just talk about just the dailiness of running a restaurant.
Well, we famously are the industry that we work all day in order to get ready to work all night. So I don't know where I heard that, but it's so apt and it's so true. So I don't know. I don't want to, I've had a lot of time off from this kind of work now in the past few months, so I don't want to perpetuate a kind of whatever the syndrome is. But look, I enjoy the work. I don't know what to tell you. If you want the brunch story, I'm happy to tell you the brunch story. I'm 38 weeks pregnant. 38 weeks, and you only get 40 weeks. That's all you get. And my sous chef at the time his mother died, and he had a freaking panic attack, an anxiety attack, and I had to take him home and work brunch. And brunch is a formidable service. It's where we do 230 covers in a 30-seat restaurant in 5 hours. So that's a real turn and burn, go, go, go. And for me, it's the funnest service. It's the greatest station when you're on eggs and you're just like, check me out. I just cooked 870 eggs perfectly in a pan with butter, not on a flat top and not pre-cooked. Anyway, it can be a real bragging rights kind of service, but when you're pregnant and at the end of it, I'm just cleaning my station, down on all fours, belly grazing, just thinking like, this is pretty fucking hard, but I'm turned on to that. It's a good day's work. It's not a bad day's work. And at that time, as I think we're pointing out, like brunch was something that was propelling the whole system up. I was able to make enough money to buy out these original investors. I became the majority owner of the business. I made my final payment on my student loan at 43 years old. God, I think I was 43. So, okay, so you had to cook a few eggs while you were 38 weeks pregnant. They were beautiful eggs.
Yeah. I think I just wanted us to thank you. I want to pay tribute to the amount of effort that doesn't show. I mean, I sometimes walk into a bookstore and look around and think, all these people finish their books. Whatever is in it, these people finish their books. These people got up day after day after day, and look, shelves and shelves of them. And I think it's easy to go to a restaurant, especially a good one, and imagine that it just sort of happened. And whoa.
Well, I'm thrilled that you bring that up, because of course I think brunch is easy, and I think running a restaurant is easy compared to actually writing a book and finishing a book. And there is something very motivating about the doors about to open at 10 o'clock or at 5:30 p.m. And it's just non-negotiable. You will be open, you will be set up, and you will get it done. But you and the open page, the blank page with no ostensible crowd about to rush in, they're not going to pay you $14 for your eggs Benedict anytime soon. Like, if you got paid by the page, that would be good.
Oh, wow.
Just to have that, look, I'm writing a book, you write books. I don't want to get into the club of it's so hard. because we do it by choice, and it's non-negotiable. It's like one of the greatest things you can do. But let's agree, there's nothing harder than writing one true sentence and getting your whole book onto the page, finished, into the Library of Congress, written by yourself. Whoa.
Absolutely.
No one cares.
Yeah. No
one's calling you every morning saying,
I'm finishing a novel. Oh, it's the calm before the calm. But I think what matters to me in this, maybe most of all, is the fact that, yes, this stuff is incredibly hard to do. So many human endeavors are incredibly hard to do, but we do them and we love them. And
it's not for pussies.
Not for pussies. But no one with any sense would write a second novel or would open a restaurant or keep it open, but we do. But we do. Heaven only knows why we love it so. Thank you, Virginia Woolf. I just had to get a little Virginia in there. Heaven only knows why we love it so. But we do.
It's mandatory. It's mandatory. The writing is mandatory. I think this is the thing. I think I noticed there was a time after Anthony Bourdain's book where he had so effectively romanticized the pirate ship that it attracted people who were not cut out to be pirates by any stretch of the imagination. And I think maybe writing attracts people also. Maybe the idea of, I just get to tell my story. I get to be heard or seen or known or something. I'm not quite sure, but people romanticize both practices. And let's be clear, this shit chews you up and spits you out. And if you're not made of of the right stuff, the material, there are many other things to do.
Many other things to do, but people are made of, enough people are made of that stuff. And it just astonishes me that we keep at it, and it's hard, and it's punishing, and it's often unrewarding, but we love it and we do it.
I mean, the thing that's nice about restaurant is it's so communal, and it's a team sport, and you are surrounded by people in a way that I'm intrigued by this Zoom experience that we're having right now, in which I can't drink of the energy in the room. I can't have the reciprocal experience of, in the metaphor of restaurant, is when I do see the four top sitting at table 9 and they are completely cocooned, and they've had some red wine and we put the dark chocolate down and they don't even know they're the last guest, and there's, I don't know, Johnny Cash on the sound system and they're breaking down the bar. It's such a delicious place to be, and I am fed by that. And for you, sorry writer, I don't know what you get fed by alone in the room without the the team.
Somebody writes you a letter.
Yeah.
In your book.
Yeah.
I'm of an age, and my husband is very sick, and I've been reading your book, and I wanted you to know that it is giving me some sense of companionship. Fine. Sure. Years of effort for that, absolutely. Okay.
So would you say, a sort of dromedary of moments, will that carry you for a very long time, a letter of significance? And because I'm thinking of the restaurant where it's nightly. Our team walks in, we have conspiratorial, convivial teamwork, and then we have the group that enters, and it's not solitary. People ask all the time about the similarities between writing and cooking, and they're very different, and they are, for me, they're antidote to each other. I don't think I could have just a writing career without the antidote of going to the group sport, nor could I just do the you know, in quite a lot of regards, it's manual labor. It's a lot of mopping and peeling and lifting and carrying, and, you know, one's brain sometimes wants to tackle other things. So to have the both is a luck, a tremendous asset, a total fortune for me. And for you, I'm like, what do you got?
You know, the better matters, but you don't get one every day. I don't, you know, honestly, there's something a little spectrumy about it, about
Yeah.
the whole endeavor for me. I don't think about not doing it. And to some degree, what I do, what writers do, is simply mysterious.
Yes.
It's a little fucked up.
Yeah.
You know, and I can't really go much of any place with that. I just keep doing it. End of story. Beats me, but I keep doing it. And
Yeah.
you want to be better. There's that constant drive to make it. The next one's going to be better. The next one is going to be deeper and truer and smarter and funnier than all those other books that weren't quite it. There's that.
Okay, well, I'm going to blow my top if you get smarter and deeper and truer. I'm going to fall off my chair.
Restaurant that if you other people see it and love it, and they're certainly not wrong. You can see a hot mess, you know, and you see the lines you regret, the
Yes.
you know, the entree that went out when it wasn't quite, you know, that stuff, and
Yep.
that's part of what keeps some of us going.
For sure. And I think by getting better, I mean, I always approach the writing projects in a very similar way to the hospitality industry. I hate calling it the industry, but to take care, to be useful, to bring the people what they want, even if they don't know they want it, but to be mindful of their time and their money, and get them what they need and want. As a writer, it can really help to have that sort of hospitality training.
And staff, you have staff. I don't. I'm the entire corporation. I know people. I know you can't name. I'm sure you can't name names, but getting a group of people to do what you need them to do. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Getting people to do what you want them to do. Well, it turns out that I was very bad at it in the beginning, and I learned brutally along the way and became, I would say, rather versed in it. What I learned is that people love to know what's expected of them, and they love to know how they're doing frequently, regularly. And if you can just tell them what's expected, it goes a long way.
Yeah.
If you can write that down, and so that they can read it and refer to it and remind them frequently. As I have said many times, thousands of times in the restaurant, it never, ever bothers me what you don't know. And it doesn't ever bother me the thing that you've forgotten that I have told you and shared with you. But around the third time, when you're still not doing the thing that you at first didn't know and then you forgot, now we're on to a different game, and it's just very clear. It's like, we're doing something different and I don't want to work with you. It's now if you could have a staff, your writing crew, I don't know.
I want a staff of writers.
Do you listen, it's a full day's work, and it's a brutal day's work often for the shepherd to make all the sheep run in the same direction without losing each individual's identity. I want each person to have their own personhood, and at the same time, we have to have a singular voice. The restaurant has to swim in one direction. We can't have you freestyling over here and you become the sheepdog that's just run. Now go over to the left field, bring him back in. And this is like perhaps a fun metaphor, because that could be a beautiful image to watch the sheepdog across the moors of Scotland shepherding the sheep. But in actual life, it's insisting that they wear the right color pink t-shirt, or asking the new young line cook to please wear a white t-shirt, or to shave, or to show up on time, or to wash one's hands. Or so it's not as majestic as the moors of Scotland and the beautiful sheep.
I'm sort of putting off talking about closing the restaurant, which I think we probably have to talk about. But I'm loving the life of the restaurant, which is on hold.
Yeah.
But I think the story in the Times has had so much effect on so many people. And as I said, it's such a brilliantly clear, unsentimental, compassionate depiction of what has happened to you, and by extension, countless people. Let's talk. We really have to talk about realizing that it's time to close.
Well, am I allowed to be in denial?
Oh, I encourage you to be in denial.
I don't know what you're fucking talking about. And I spit on your suggestion. But yes, it's sleeping. She's sleeping. And I'm going to let her sleep for a very long time. Listen, it's fine. It's fine. She should go. And I don't mean to be coy or play coy. I didn't write about my own restaurant. I used my restaurant. I saw what was going on in this city, and I've been watching it for a very long time. And I know every chef in the whole freaking country, and I know what's going on. And I just used mine as a focal point. And should we reopen? Look, I'm just going to tell you, I think we should go on strike. Everyone wants us to reopen, and I'd like to also, but I would like some things to be different. And I'm not worried about Prune in any way. I'm not worried about repurposing her, recreating the feeling that we all wish so much to have again. I have 1,000 ideas that just keep coming and coming and coming. And I know I'm going to be able to get for you and for me what we both want. And that's important. I have to feel passion for the work, because there's no inspiration to do that much work for that many hours without it. I have to feel super moved, super turned on, which is why I am not going to pivot, as they say, to takeout or delivery. If that's all right with everyone, if I just may I have the permission of the world to not pivot, I'll pivot to something. I will recreate something, but it won't be what Prune was when she went to sleep, and it won't be delivery or takeout with Grubhub and caviar.
Yeah. No, I've been trying to. The word "and" is just inevitable, but I've been trying to sort of skirt around it. It's a transformation. It's hiatus. It's the end of what's like it's the hangman and the tarot deck. It's about death, but renewal.
Exactly right.
Not a bad card.
Correct.
It's an important card, but it's not a destruction card.
And for me, it will be a pity if we don't make some serious changes before we come back to life, which is why I'm alone. I know I'm the only person on earth who says, don't reopen until we have health insurance, until we have a fair wage. Like, I don't care how we get there. Do you want to bring down the rents? Do you want to give us all health care? But something should change. But to just rush back in and reopen as a kind of 25% of what you were just to start making money again. It's like, if I just need to have a job just to make money, I'll do that. I would rather work at UPS. I would rather whatever. I could be the property manager for a very wealthy person. You need dinner on Friday and the lawn mowed. I'm a very good lawnmower. But let's not reopen as we were, where many people suffer, and I mean suffer.
Yeah. We should talk to the presences in the air around. I wrote down a line from the Times. I just want to quickly read this. Toward the end of the piece in the Times. So I'm going to let the restaurant sleep like the beauty she is, shallow, breathing, dormant, bills unpaid, and see what she looks like when she wakes up. Yeah. Gorgeous.
In a city that may or may not want her or need her or recognize her. And I think that's pretty important that Prune opened in 1999, which is the end of the millennium, the end of a millennium and the beginning of a new one. And I'm fine. I'm really fine going into the new one. It would be more fun for me if what was on offer was more delicious or enticing. I'm not sure what's coming, and I haven't been that turned on by it. If it's mostly rampant capitalism and just avarice, just greed, like maybe that's not so fun for me. Or the easy way, and everything's the easy way, but the change is going to be fine. It's really going to be fine. It's just, I'd like to not predict the future. I didn't write a think piece. I very purposely wrote a feel piece, and I wanted to mourn the loss of a time and a way of being and eulogize it, and also let the world know that I still stand by that way, and I will be here going forward on behalf of that way, should anyone be interested.
Oh, I think they're interested. That's a beautiful answer to a very, very difficult question. So thank you for that. I have a few questions from the chat that I'd like to ask. One more about the piece, but really, I guess when or why you turned to writing to process your thoughts on Prune, whether it felt natural to put your thoughts in words for yourself or for the public. My boss, Sarah McNally, pretty early on felt an urge to write something about what was happening in the interest of sort of small business advocacy, but I also think, not to speak for her, but I think part of that urge to write was for her to understand how she felt. And so when did it occur to you that you needed to write something about what was happening now and what was happening to you?
It was extremely pragmatic, I must admit to you. On March 15th, both my wife and I had a total abrupt cessation of income. And that was my paycheck every week. And I might burst into tears, 1 second, which has not abated. So she has only gotten her unemployment recently, and I don't have it. So anyway, I was really on the hustle. I was like, okay, well, I have this side gig. Like, I had a day job, and then I was very urgently aware that I was gonna need some money, and so I pitched for the first time in my life. I'm one of the luckiest writers in the whole food world that I've never pitched an essay in my freaking life. They've come to me, and I bow down with gratitude. And I was like, I need a writing gig. My monthly column in the New York Times is not going to pay the rent or my 2 children's expenses or the food around here, etc., the insurance. And I pitched Sam Sifton. I was like, can I tell you what it's like to close a restaurant? And he said, yeah, give me 1,800 words. I'll give you 1,800 words. And I wrote 13,000. And also I couldn't quickly do my dirty writing process, being naked and covered in poop in front of a brand new editor, especially one as august and talented as Sam Sifton. And I turned to my trusted, beloved editor at the magazine, Claire Gutierrez, and said, can you please get this piece, and can I get Sam to fire me? And she then gave me the 6,000 words, which put some dollars in the bank. And so like, I'm going to stop crying. We're eating okay for a minute. But it was not a compulsion to self-express. It was, would anyone like to know what this is like? And I think I'm the man for the job. I think I can do it.
I have another question from the chat from Sonal. If Prune were to be open right now, what would be on your fantasy menu for right now?
Well, I'm really into meal salads. I think the season is changing, and I would have a lot of meal salads. I think the fantasy, it's not the menu so much. I've always had the fantasy menu. So that's one of the things I love about Prune is people come and they say, what should we have, or what's good? And I, with full truth in my heart, say, there's not a thing on this menu that I wouldn't love to eat right now. We don't put anything on there just for sort of, you got to fill a category, or there should be a meat thing or a chocolate thing. It's never, it has to be like, I am so into this. So.
Jonathan asks, what is the one thing that someone else has said about Prune that most captures what you're trying to achieve with it?
Since the essay came out in the New York Times, I have had a flood, a deluge, an avalanche of people writing to me, and I'm gonna burst into tears again.
Oh,
Prune did everything it was meant to do. People really got it and really had the experiences that we tried so hard, and it's genius. Like, even if we do die now and never come back, like, I can die a really happy, fulfilled, and satisfied person. People lingered. They felt more cared for there than they had from their originating families. They never felt rushed. They never felt judged, and the food was good. So.
And then I think we have time for just one last question, which is an evergreen question. What are you reading nowadays to help you sort through everything?
I'm not sorting through everything. So I'm reading, I've picked up We Were the Mulvaneys by Joyce Carol Oates, which I read a long time ago because I'm trying to write that book, which I have this second, third book I have 705 inchoate, miserable pages of that I can't quite pull together. I can't quite find what their drive is. And so I remembered that book about the family that started bright and sparkly and diminishes. And I thought that would be a good thing to read. So that's what I'm on right now.
Gabrielle and Michael and everybody who joined us tonight, I just want to say again, thank you. Thank you especially to you two for your honesty and your candor. This really was very special, I think, for all of us.
Can I thank you so much? It means so much to me. Michael Cunningham, obviously, it's just the greatest honor. McNally Jackson, Random House, like, I feel like this is a writer's event. Which, my whole life I felt like a fake or a fraud or an interloper, and so it's just very meaningful, and I can't thank you enough. And that people came.
Oh, of course.
Thank you. Really, so many thanks.
And everybody's thanking in the chat, which you can't see, and everybody's looking forward to what you make of those pages you have and the pages that are yet to come.
So we're all going to meet at the bar on the corner right now?
We're all going to meet at the bar in the corner, right?
Good.
Thank you again, everybody. All the attendees will be hearing from me tomorrow, but in the meantime, be well, be safe. Thank you again, and have a wonderful night.
The future.